because I refuse to not be first.
Do we do enough? Well, I never shut up about it.
It must have been about 16, 17. We nicked their guilt rings. Right, the bouncers' guilt rings.
This is no good for me. That's the reality. If you want the honest truth, and I see it every day.
This is Colin McGuigan for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. Delighted to be joined by Max Kellerman from ESPN. Max, did we just see a special performance from Teofimo? The takeover is back.
It was special because the history of boxing has been such that when a champion who is, a dominant champion, or the real champion, I don't mean belt holder, I mean the guy who is the champion, moves up in weight to fight another guy who's the real champion in that division, when the lighter weight guy does it and he's not the champion anymore, it usually doesn't turn out well. There's a reason he's not champion anymore. Something went wrong, right? And he's fighting a naturally bigger guy. So, Donald Curry and Milton McCrory, welterweights in the 80s, this is before your time, moved up and couldn't beat Mike McCallum, who is a more dominant junior middleweight champion. They gave him good fights, but ultimately they lost. But Sugar Ray Leonard could go up and beat Marvin Hagler eventually, right? The special guys can do it. And Teofimo Lopez has been, whenever the lights have shone brightest, he has been a special fighter.
I don't want to take anything away from his performance with this comment, but do you believe that Father Time and maybe Josh Taylor having that long layoff played a factor in that result tonight?
It's always like you don't want to be unfair to a guy, but you have to analyze it. And Josh Taylor looked flat. Now, he looked flat against Catterall, too. But to your point, he didn't look flat in the first 3 rounds, Josh Taylor. He looked flat after Teo gave him that football block that threw him down and then started high-stepping and getting into his rhythm, right? Teo was losing the fight, and he knew he needed to do something. And that's what he did. He kind of broke Taylor's forward momentum, whatever he was established, by throwing him down, by checking him, and then started getting into his rhythm and getting into his bag, his improv, his superior speed. And so yes, Taylor looked flat and unimaginative. That is true. And yes, he looked that way against Catterall, but he didn't look that way early in the fight. Teo started making him look that way.
What would you like to see next for Teofimo Lopez first? The Haney fight's obviously marketable, probably the biggest fight in the division. Do you think that's next, or do you think maybe someone like Regis Prograis, Jose Ramirez, who was here?
I doubt it'll be Haney next because they probably want to build that. I don't think it'll be Prograis either because that's a dangerous fight, and the story's not built in. I think, and Taylor's already beaten Prograis. I think most likely would be Ramirez. Or you could do because promotionally that's easy. You could do a Lomachenko rematch, but that's a dangerous fight. You could do a Kambosos rematch, right? Because he had a medical condition when he barely lost to Kambosos the first time. A tank fight would be amazing, but that's a promotional difficulty. My guess would be someone like Ramirez.
Josh Taylor. Do you go down the route of the Catterall rematch? You move up to 147 and hope that the belts become fragmented after Spence Crawford?
Only Josh Taylor knows how his body's feeling, but he did look like a guy against Catterall also who maybe has been at the weight too long. He just looked flat.
I think your point's evident there. In terms of Spence Crawford next, how do you think that goes? Errol Spence, obviously at this time of his career, this fight probably should have happened a few years ago. Now, how do you think it goes?
It would have been best had it happened a couple of years ago, but the expiration date has not yet passed, so they got it under the wire. How does it go? I think Spence early, and then the question is, does Crawford, by the time he figures Spence out, is there enough time? Because Spence is a high-volume, aggressive fighter who can also box if he needs to and win behind a jab and defense. He also is the taller, longer guy, or at least a taller guy, and he has a good chin. So a lot of times Crawford can make up for early stuff by breaking a guy down and stopping him. Let's see if he can do that against Spence. It is a 50-50 fight for a reason.
Last one from me. Fury Usyk, Joshua Wilder. Do you believe that happens in Saudi, and how do you think those fights play out?
If the Saudis throw enough money at it, Joshua was once a great heavyweight. The night he beat Vladimir Klitschko, he was a great heavyweight on that night. It was a great heavyweight fight. Oh, Vladimir was old. Everyone stop it. Vladimir would have beaten everyone else that night, right? Get up off the deck to beat him. something happened. Even against Ruiz, he got up off the deck at first, but then Ruiz got him. And since then, he has not looked the same. So if the fighter who fought Klitschko is still in there somewhere, who knows? But the fighter I've seen recently, man, to go 12 rounds and not get touched by that right hand by Deontay is a lot. And it's hard to picture that. It's hard to picture Joshua avoiding that right hand for 12 rounds or being aggressive enough to stop Wilder, and go through some of those shots in the exchanges. So you got to like Wilder at this moment.
Fury Usyk.
Usyk has chances. Usyk is a great fighter. Fury is 6'9", 260 pounds. The man boxes like a lightweight. Has gotten off the deck against Deontay Wilder, and I thought won the fight, and then knocked Wilder out another time. And it's a different way. Tyson Fury said it best. I asked him once, like, do you care about pound for pound? And he's like, no, because why should a heavyweight care about pound for pound? If you're big, it helps you, right? There is no pound for pound. Usyk might be better when he was at cruiserweight, but once you cross into heavyweight, it doesn't matter anymore. The guy can be twice your size, and Fury's got him by 40 pounds.
Well, Max, thank you very much for your time. Always a pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Because I refuse to not be first.
Do we do enough? Well, I never shut up about it.
It must have been about 16, 17. We nicked their guilt rings. Right, the bouncer's guilt ring.
This is no good for me. That's the reality. If you want the honest truth, and I see it every day,